Picture this. It's exactly 2 a.m. A car's headlights are just tearing through the pitch-black highway. But honestly, the real nightmare is happening inside that car. The driver's hands are trembling so violently on the steering wheel he can barely hold it. Sweat is pouring down his forehead, stinging his eyes, but he is absolutely terrified to even blink. In the back seat, his buddy keeps whipping his head around, screaming at him to step on it, yelling that they're far enough away, that they're safe. But the driver just stammers in sheer absolute panic, looks in the rearview mirror and whispers, "You don't understand. She's with us. I literally saw her in the mirror. She is sitting right here." See, these guys weren't running from the police or from anything human. Just a few hours earlier, they made a bet that they could survive one single night inside the ruins of Bhangarh Fort. They thought it was just a pile of old rocks. Suddenly, a blurry figure appears in the middle of the road. The brakes scream, the tires shriek, the car flips, and then just a long, endless silence. When the police found the 3 bodies the next morning, there were no witnesses, but the sheer terror completely frozen in their eyes told a story that still gives people chills. They didn't die from the crash itself. They died from seeing something much, much worse. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking the absolute mystery of Bhangarh. We're stepping onto a piece of land where the limits of science completely drop off, and a whole different world takes over. At first glance, Bhangarh Fort, which is tucked away in the dry, rocky Aravalli hills of Rajasthan, India, looks like this breathtaking piece of historical architecture. But the second you get close to its borders, something changes. The air suddenly feels incredibly heavy, and then you see it. Bolted right to the iron gates is this massive board from the Archaeological Survey of India, the ASI. Now, this isn't some tourist trap gimmick or a local ghost story cooked up to sell tickets. This is an official, legally binding government document, and it explicitly states that entry into the fort between sunset and sunrise is strictly prohibited. Think about that for a second. There are thousands of ancient ruins across the globe, but Bhangarh is literally the only historical site in India where the government itself officially restricts night entry. Are they really just worried about some wild animals in the dark? Or do these officials know a truth that they just can't say out loud? Because if you ask the locals, they'll tell you straight up, at night in Bhangarh, the wind doesn't blow, spirits do. And anyone who dares to say the night either isn't found in the morning or they are never ever the same again. But, to really wrap our heads around this terror, we first have to understand the sheer beauty that this terror destroyed. Okay, let's dive into this. Let's travel back from this incredibly dark present to a truly glorious past. The year was 1573, right in the golden era of the Mughal Emperor Akbar. The king of Amr, Raja Bhagwant Das, laid the very foundation of this city for his younger son, Madho Singh, who was a legendary, brave warrior. And listen, Bhangarh wasn't just another dusty old fort. It was basically the 16th century equivalent of a smart city. It was beautifully and securely cradled by these huge natural mountain walls on 3 sides. It thrived for generations, just absolutely bursting with life, wealth, and culture. But this bustling metropolis eventually met a sudden, catastrophic end, transforming almost overnight from a paradise into a permanent graveyard. Let's look at exactly what was lost here. I want you to imagine walking through the main gates of this city in its absolute prime. You'd step right into the Johari Bazaar, this massive, sprawling jewelry market flanked by beautiful 2-story stone shops. The air would be incredibly thick with the rich scent of sandalwood, diamonds, emeralds, and precious stones literally gleaming in the shop windows. The streets were just echoing with life, the laughter of kids, the rhythmic chiming of dancers' ankle bells, the ringing of temple bells. The masterfully carved Gopinath and Someshwar temples were these jaw-dropping testaments to the incredible skill of the local artisans, and they even had these highly advanced stepwells to manage water in the harsh desert climate. It supported a thriving, incredibly happy population of roughly 10,000 people. Viewed from the very top of the palace, this city looked like heaven on earth. It was a city that was literally built to live forever. But fate had a totally different script in mind. One that was inked in blood, betrayal, and some extremely dark magic. Now, what's really interesting about all this is that the destruction of Bhangarh isn't pinned on just one single event. It's actually a dual curse. On one hand, you have a broken promise to a very powerful meditating ascetic named Guru Balunath. And on the other, there's this absolutely chilling story of dark magic gone horribly wrong, fueled by a sinister tantric's obsession. Both of these legends, according to the historical folklore, lead to the exact same horrifying destination, absolute ruin. Let's dig into that first curse. So before the first brick of the fort was even laid, King Bhagwandas found out that the land already belonged to this powerful ascetic, Guru Balunath, who had been meditating in a cave there for years. The king, being respectful, went to him and asked for permission to build his city. Guru Balunath opened his eyes and basically said, "Sure, you can build your city, build your palaces as high as you want, but hear me now. The day your palace's shadow touches my meditation spot, your city and your entire dynasty will be destroyed." The king promised. And for generations, they kept that promise. They kept the palace height restricted. But you know how it goes. Later rulers got a bit ambitious. They viewed the ascetic's warning as just some old superstition. So they ordered the palace to be built taller, added a few floors to show off their power. And then came that fateful winter afternoon. The sun was setting, and the long, dark shadow of the newly towering palace crept down the mountain, crawling right over the grass and completely engulfed the ascetic's cave. Guru Balunath opened his eyes, saw the darkness, realized the promise was broken, and in absolute trembling fury, he cursed the city to turn to dust. Okay, so while the ascetics supposedly stripped the city of its peace, the real bloody devastation arrived in the form of a twisted obsession. Enter Princess Ratnavati. She was renowned across entire empires for her unmatched beauty, but lurking in the shadows of Bhangarh was a tantric, a guy who practiced the absolute darkest arts, literally living in the cremation grounds, covering himself in ash. He saw the princess one day, and his attraction instantly turned into sheer madness. Knowing he could never have her, he plotted to use his darkest magic. He spotted her in the market buying her favorite Itar perfume, and he secretly cast a wicked spell on the bottle. The plan was that the second she put it on, she'd lose all free will and just blindly run to him. But the princess, who actually had spiritual knowledge of her own, picked up the bottle and felt it vibrating. It wasn't cold, it was unnaturally hot. She looked up, locked eyes with this tantric in the crowd, saw exactly what he was doing, and in a rage hurled that perfume bottle at a massive boulder nearby. The bottle shattered, and the spell completely backfired. The bewitched boulder, compelled to go to the tantric, literally defied gravity, rolled toward him at a terrifying speed, and crushed him. But he didn't die quietly. With his ribs shattered, coughing up blood in his final, agonizing breaths, he raised his hand toward the fort and cursed the entire city. "Before the next new moon, this city will be ash, and your souls will be trapped here with me forever." And guys, just weeks after that gruesome death, the end arrived. Historians state that the neighboring state of Ajabgarh launched a massive, brutal assault on Bhangarh. But if you listen to local lore, this wasn't just your standard territorial battle. They say the attacking soldiers were possessed by this unnatural, rabid frenzy. The heavy gates were breached, and after that, it was just a slaughter. The swords spared absolutely no one. Not the kids, not the elderly, and ultimately, not even Princess Ratnavati. By sunrise, a thriving, vibrant city of 10,000 people was wiped entirely off the map, transforming into a massive, permanent graveyard. The survivors who managed to escape ran for their lives and vowed to never, ever return. So the physical city was dead, but the really chilling question remains. Did the souls of the massacred ever actually leave? All right, transitioning back to the present day, let's actually look at the physical anomalies that are still terrifying visitors right now. When you walk through the ruins, you'll immediately notice these perfect rows of stone houses with completely sturdy walls. But here's the catch: not a single one has a roof. Locals swear up and down that no roof can ever stay intact here. The curse literally will not allow a shadow to shelter the ruins. Even modern attempts to pour cement roofs have just mysteriously collapsed. And then there are the sensory anomalies, which are wild. Visitors constantly report walking through the ruins and suddenly getting hit with the intoxicating, sweet scent of royal perfume, which then instantly shifts to the stomach-churning stench of rotting meat. Plus, wild kauda bushes, which scientifically attract snakes, have completely taken over the area. But honestly, the most unsettling thing? It's the absolute, suffocating silence that drops over the fort at dusk. I'm talking dead silent. Even the birds just completely stop chirping. And then there's this highly specific, very creepy anomaly, 4 to 5 degrees Celsius. As you walk closer to the Nartaki Mahal, which is the dancer's palace within the ruins, the ambient temperature drops suddenly and inexplicably by exactly 4 to 5 degrees, every single time. Now, is this just a natural cooling effect of the ancient stone architecture trapping the cold desert air, or is it something else entirely? Because if you know anything about paranormal investigations, a sudden localized drop in temperature like that is basically textbook for an unseen spiritual presence actively drawing energy from the environment, which leads us perfectly into the great debate surrounding Bhangarh. And this brilliantly illustrates the clash between belief and logic. The famed paranormal investigator Gaurav Tiwari and his team actually spent a night inside the fort with advanced equipment. Their findings were genuinely alarming. But of course, science offers a totally logical counter-narrative for almost every claim. When Tiwari's EMF meters started spiking erratically in areas where there is literally zero electricity, paranormal enthusiasts were like, boom, invisible spirits manipulating energy. But scientists argue, no, it's just natural underground electromagnetic fields. When their microphones picked up these faint, ghostly whispers, believers said it was the trapped souls of the massacred. Science, however, points to something called infrasound, which are these low-frequency wind patterns rushing through the stone ruins that we can't consciously hear, but they vibrate in a way that literally triggers profound, instinctual fear in the human brain. And that intense dread people feel, is it the tantric's lingering curse, or just the very real psychological impact of being completely isolated in a creepy ruin with a super dark history? Look, it is very easy for us to sit comfortably in our well-lit homes, analyze the data, and chalk it all up to science, infrasound, and psychology. But if it is truly just natural phenomena and overactive imaginations, explain this. Why is the official government guard's office built a full kilometer away from the fort's main gates? In its entire 150-year history, the Archaeological Survey of India has never treated another site like this. As 6 p.m. approaches, the guards don't just politely ask people to leave. They are frantically blowing whistles, actively rushing tourists out, warning them that the shadows are getting too long. They absolutely refuse to stay near the walls as the sun dips behind the Aravalli Hills. Seriously, if there is absolutely nothing to fear, why does the government ensure its own employees are stationed a literal kilometer away from the supposed infrasound? So the crucial point we need to take away here is this. Bhangarh is not just a pile of rocks. It is a literal time capsule, frozen in a moment of unimaginable agony from 400 years ago. Whether you believe it's the wrath of a disturbed ascetic, the dark, bloody spell of a crushed tantric, the lingering trauma of 10,000 slaughtered innocents, or simply electromagnetic fields playing tricks on the human mind, Bhangarh holds a dark power that commands absolute respect. It is a place where the door between our world and whatever lies beyond is incredibly, dangerously thin. Some doors are honestly just better left closed. But I have to ask you, looking at all the evidence, the science, and the sheer historical terror, if you were given the chance, would you dare to stay in the dark of the night and find out for yourself?